Hey guys, this is my 7th battle report, and this is my round 2 game in the Universal Battle Tournament. So here's the first slide with deployment and setup. I am playing against Forces of Nature. This is my first time playing against this list. I'm playing against somebody called Deveen, or I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. It's Devean. Really cool guy. He's in Thailand, I guess. So we had to email back and forth quite a bit just to get this scheduled. There's I think it's a 14-hour time difference. He is living in the future. So playing at 3:30 in the afternoon my time on a Wednesday was actually 5:30 in the morning on his Thursday. So it was a little bit tricky, and he had to get up early to play this game, but he was cool about it. Very fun opponent. His list is interesting in many ways. It has some really tough points to it, and honestly, looking at it on paper, I wasn't too worried about it from what I saw, but there is so much regeneration and healing on the table, and a lot of shooting, more than it looks like at first, that it wound up being a much more resilient, punchier army than I anticipated. So I'm running my Brotherhood list. This is my 4th or 5th game with them. I still really love this list. I still have a lot of learning to do with it, but it was great to take it up against a new enemy and try it out in a different scenario. So this is a 2,000 point game. The map was provided by the tournament creator, and we are playing Pillage. So we've got 5 objectives. There's 3 in the 3 forests, there's 1 in the center at the crossroads, and there's 1 on the right hand side at the ruins. So no kill points in this game. Everything is just totally bent around these objectives. I didn't play with that in mind, honestly. With this list that I have, I don't have any magic or shooting, and he does, so I just knew that I had to be aggressive. And if I wasn't aggressive, if I just try to sit back and hold objectives, it's not going to work for me. So I did that in this game. And the deployment here is something else I've been doing a lot of, which is a denied flank deployment. We had an even number of drops, so it was hard for me to really hide what I was doing, but I tried to deploy this stuff in the center first so that he couldn't see what I was deploying on the left. Honestly, this deployment, I'm not sure it worked for me as well as it has in other games. I could have tried something a little bit different here, but I'll go left to right and describe it. On the far left, I've got my Exemplar Hunter with wings, and I put him there to disrupt or disorder the heart piercers he has. He's got a lot of shooting, but it's kind of spread out. It's not like there's one big block of shooting. The biggest block of shooting he has is this regiment of heart piercers, which are in the forest on the opposite end. So I'm just hoping to harass them and disorder them with the hunter. Next to them, I've got a troop of recon, and behind them, an Order of Redemption Knights with the Brew of Strength. In the forest, I've got a Martyr Horde, behind them, Forsaken Regiment, and then another troop of recon, and behind them, a regiment of the Order of the Abyssal Hunt with haste. Then I've got my General with ensorcelled armor. He's an Exemplar Forsaker and defense 6 with the item. And then I've got my Exemplar Redeemer with the Onyx Ring, so he's got regen 4+. I've got my Martyr Horde again and another Forsaken Regiment. On my opponent's side, he's got a Winged Unicorn. These guys were interesting in this battle. They're a really great support unit and pretty diverse in what they can do. They can lend a little bit of a punch on a charge if they need to, but they've got Heal 7 and they've got Bane Chant and Inspiring, so they're a great support unit as well. So he's got a Winged Unicorn there. Then he's got Naiad Heart Piercers in the forest. So this is something new for me. They have harpoon guns, which are 18-inch range and piercing 1. Also, something that I found difficult to deal with in this game was the fact that the entire list that he has, they all have Pathfinder. So using the terrain is something I would normally try to do, and you just can't against this army. It means nothing to him. So he can move at the double, he can charge and not be hindered, he can move and fire and all that good stuff. So next to the Heartpiercer Regiment, he's got a Stalker, Naiad Stalker, which is a character with Inspiring only to Naiads, but he also has a Harpoon gun with 4 attacks. Then on the road, he's got a Beast of Nature, and these are expensive builds, but you know they have a lot of options, and he used them well. So this Beast of Nature has Lightning Bolt, it has Vicious, which also gives him a couple extra attacks, and it has Fly. So altogether, they're 240 points each, but they work very well for him. He's got a troop of Heartpiercers next to that, then a horde of Naiad Ensnarers. This is a nasty unit. They've got Ensnare on the front, and using terrain like the forest in front of him, anything that attacks the front is going to be -2 to hit. So that's a tough nut to crack. Behind them, he's got another Unicorn. So again, the heal spell, heal 7, and Bane Chant. He's got 2 more Naiad Heartpiercer troops, another Beast of Nature, again with Vicious, Lightning Bolt, and Fly. And then on the far right, he's got Naiad Worm Riders. At first, I thought this was like a flying unit with ranged attacks or something, but I must be pulling that from a different list. These are basically a cavalry unit, so 8-inch move, Crushing 1, Thunderous 1, no Nimble or Fly or anything like that. Just a fairly standard cavalry unit, but the key here is that they have Pathfinder. So being behind the ruins really means nothing to him. Okay, that's deployment. We'll move on to turn 1. As you can see, I took the first turn here, or I shouldn't say I took it. It was given to me. He won the roll, but let me go first. It's exactly what I didn't want, so it's a smart move on his part. Whenever there's a scenario with objectives like this, I like to go second, so that in the last turn I can try to contest or grab an objective. And I also like it because it causes him to do a little bit of movement, since he has ranged attacks, but they're all, for the most part, 18 inches. Then he has to do a little bit of movement on his part, and then if he does move up a little bit, then I can just run at him. So he does the smart thing, and he lets me go first. But I know I have to be aggressive here. So I pretty much move everything up. My recon troops move up to screen my knights. My hunter is moving up so he can charge into the woods and charge the Heartpiercers if I need to. My martyr hordes move up. My Forsaken regiments move up behind them. I moved my Redeemer up because I figured at least he's got a Heartpiercer troop in front of the building in the center of the table. They don't have a lot of places to go. At the very least, maybe I can charge them and take them out or disorder them and give them something to think about. I also chose this side of the board because there are 4 objectives on this side of the board. Pretty much the 3 in the forest and the 1 in the crossroads, I just figure that's where the fight's going to be. And so I moved my general a little bit over to the right and facing to the right because he's got his other beast on the hill, and if he really moved him up aggressively, he could get into my flank pretty quick. So I want to protect that a little bit and give him something to think about by putting my general there. That's my turn 1. So on his turn 1, he surprises me a little bit by backing up with a lot of things that he has on the left side. Smart move, he gets behind the forest so that I can't see him to get off the charge, but he also can't see me to shoot. So I was a little surprised by that, but I think it was a good move. His beast backs up on the road there, but has lightning bolt, so he's still got range to shoot that. His Naiad Ensnarers move up into the forest where they're just outside of range of my Martyr Horde, so I would be able to charge him with my Flying General and Forsaken Regiment, but again, they have Ensnare, and I'd be landing into the forest, so I'd be hindered, so -2 to hit and no Thunderous Charge. Against a unit that size, there's nothing appealing about that. He does move his beast up and look at my flank, which is something I was anticipating, and he moves up with his Worm Riders as well. I guess he had to pivot them, which is why they moved as slow as they did, but he could have moved at the double. So one thing I was thinking in deployment is my Order of Redemption Knights, which are on the far left side of the board. I almost put them on the far right side of the board. So they would have been on their own over on the right side, but it would have avoided this kind of movement that he's done where he's got stuff facing my flank at this point. He would not have moved his beast there if I had a regiment to charge him in the rear. There's no way. He would have had to be a little more defensive than that. And so I don't know how it would have worked out, because that one knight wouldn't stand up very well against both the beast and his worm riders. So the only thing I can think is it would have caused him to divide his forces a little bit and give him more to think about. But we'll see how things unfold here. I'm still fairly happy with what I can do. My knights can move quick and hopefully hit the stuff on the left side of the board and then move right. So that's the end of turn 1. So in my turn 2, I continue to be aggressive. I don't have anything in range. I mostly don't have anything in range for charging. So I just move all my units up and continue to face to the right and move forward. My recon troop gets into the forest so that even if he tries to play more defensively, I can still get a charge off. And I've got my hunter behind them now, so at the very least, I can attack them with him and get them disordered so they can't shoot. My knights are moving into position. I'm really wanting to charge something next turn. I was hoping to charge something this turn, but it didn't work out. My Forsaken regiments stay screened behind the other units. I'm still worried about him coming around my flank, so I'm facing that way. Probably a little bit too much so, but the eagles in the center there, that Forsaken regiment should have probably faced a little more down rather than to the right. But this is pretty good. I'm okay with this. My Martyr Horde pivots. I thought I was outside of range of his Naiad Ensnarers, but we'll see in the next slide that I'm not. There was a lot of mistakes I made in this game where I just was a little bit careless and paying attention to the arcs and the range. So, case in point, that blue Martyr Horde is in range to his Ensnarers. They have Pathfinder, so it's not a problem for him to charge me. Just a little bit careless on my part and a mistake. But overall, not a bad positioning, I'm thinking. I do a double charge with my general, the Exemplar Forsaker, and the Exemplar Redeemer on his troop of Naiad Heartpiercers. So what happened here was I figured if I charge with just one, I'm not going to kill them, or at least I run the risk of not killing them. If I charge them with both, then I can kill them and reposition. And what I originally thought that I would be able to do is charge them, kill them, and then have my general face the flank of that horde of ensnarers and be outside of their front arc. Turns out it was just a little too close and I wasn't able to get outside of their front arc. So instead of just changing face, I go ahead and advance and basically run into that building. And so that way I'm out of his front arc, but it leaves me with nothing to do next turn in terms of charging. But I've got my flank protected from the beast because I've got my Redeemer there and he's an individual, so you can't double attacks on him anyway. So not too bad. I forgot to mention in the last slide that my opponent had taken out one of my recon troops. He did that with his shooting. So his Naiad Stalker and his lightning bolt from his beast was enough to take them out. So now we've both taken out a troop of each other's units, and that was my turn 2. And now in his turn 2, he starts to come back at me with some things, and he gets aggressive. He has charge on my Martyr Horde, as I mentioned. So he charges them with both his beast in my flank and his Naiad Horde in my front. Honestly, even as I was running the numbers in my head, I thought I would be okay. I forgot that Vicious gives the beast 2 extra attacks, and he also threw Bane Chant on the Naiad Horde, so they were wounding on 2s instead of 3s. I forgot to mention they also have the magic item of Brew of Strength, so they're crushing 2 with Bane Chant. So the Martyr Horde, because I had Valiant units nearby, which acts the same as rallying, it increases my nerve, and they're a fearless unit, they had a dash 24 nerve. So that's a very strong nerve, and I thought they can handle a charge. But forgetting the extra attacks on the beast and the fact that the horde had crushing 2, He did plenty of wounds and was able to roll solid against them. I continued to make the mistake about not having inspiring near my troops because I was aggressive with my characters. They're now up front instead of being with my troops where I need inspiring. So it's a lesson I apparently need to keep learning. I just can't seem to get that right. I need to just throw a banner character in the army. I play so aggressively that I end up charging with anything that can. And so if I had a banner, at least he would be sitting back. Or again, I could have reversed the deployment of the knights. If the redemption were in the center, they're actually a unit that gives inspiring, whereas the Abyssal Horde are valiant. So I could have reversed that deployment, and that might have helped me as well. But at any rate, he takes the initiative, takes that charge, and takes him out. He does a couple wounds to my Forsaken Regiment with some shooting, and other than that, just is repositioning things. I don't like that his beast down in the center, but basically both his beasts now are up in my business and have flank charges on things. My Abyssal Hunt are in a bad position at this point. They are in charge range from the Naiads. I don't even think if I back up that I can get out of the charge range. And any direction I face, I'm going to get flanked by either a beast or the ensnarers. So they're in a bad spot right now, and I'm not looking forward to that. So just trying to figure out what I'm going to do in my next turn. So I do the best I can in my turn 3 here. I basically just back the Abyssal Hunt Knights up. I'm not going to avoid getting charged, but at least if I put other things around him, maybe I'll give him something to think about. So my Martyr Horde is right behind them. They're going to be able to charge whatever he brings in. I'm assuming that those knights are going to die in this turn, or in his next turn. Down in the forest in the bottom left, I do a double charge. Actually, excuse me, he had moved his Stalker up into the forest, so I charged the Stalker with my Redemption Knights. And I should be able to kill him, and I'm hoping for a decent overrun roll where I can then go into the Heart Piercers that are behind the forest. That's exactly what happens. I kill the Stalker and I advance forward and I roll high enough to go into them as well. My Hunter also charges into the side, but I totally just whiffed the roll. I mean, just a horrible roll. Out of 20 rolls needing force to hit, I think I hit 4 times, and then I wounded like twice with the Redemption unit. And then my Hunter gets another couple of wounds, or 4 wounds. He actually does well. So that's really unfortunate. Thankfully, at least I roll high enough on the nerve to waver them. But that's certainly less than I was hoping for. I was hoping to wipe them out and be able to reposition to the right and threaten his beast and his unicorn. But it just wasn't meant to be. My Redeemer charges his beast and does a wound. Actually did 2 wounds. Which is fine. I was just looking to do a couple of wounds to start whittling him down and also to disorder him so he can't cast Lightning Bolt. I decided to take my Forsaken Regiments, both of them, and hop them on the other side of his Naiad Horde. I don't want to use them to screen my Knights. It might have been a good idea. I would rather lose a Forsaken Regiment than lose my Abyssal Hunt at this point. It's nice to have the flying units, but the Abyssal Hunt packs a lot more punch, and they just haven't seen any combat yet. But I go ahead and do a double charge on his Worm Riders. One of my units lands in the forest, so they're hindered, but the other unit is not. The Worm Riders do not have Ensnare, so at least I don't have to deal with that. I managed 6 wounds, which again I think is a little below average for rolling, but I roll well for the nerve again and waver them. So they've got a 4-up regen, he's got healing from the unicorns, so 6 damage is really not enough to do lasting damage to them, but getting the waver is huge because now he's stuck. I make a really big mistake with my general. I turned him to face up there, and what I was wanting to do was give my Forsaken Regiment Inspiring and put him in position to charge the Worm Riders. What I really should have done is faced him more to the left and center so that I can charge the Naiad Horde of Ensnarers and the Beast who are about to charge my Knights. So that's really poor positioning on my part. I could have positioned in a way that had everything in my arc and I just kind of rushed it and wasn't paying attention to the details. So that's another big mistake that I made this game. But fairly happy I was able to waver 2 units and reposition things a little bit, so not too bad for the mistakes I'm making. And here in my opponent's third turn, I can't complain too much about my bad rolls in my last turn in case he gets some bad rolls in his turn here. So things go well for me here. He does a double charge on my Abyssal Hunt. He does not charge with the Naiad Ensnarer Horde, which surprises me, but I understand he's getting double flank charges with his beasts, so he figures that's going to be enough to break my knights. So he turns the Horde around to deal with my Forsaken, which are now behind him, and my general as well. So I understand the move, but it doesn't work out for him. I think he rolls a little bit below average. I don't think it was horrendous, but he definitely rolls below average and does 9 wounds on my Abyssal Hunt. They have a 15-18 nerve, which is a solid nerve. So he needs a 9 to rout them, but he only rolls a 7 or an 8, and so they are wavered. The great thing about them is that they have Fury, so even though they're wavered, they can countercharge anything that has charged them. So now I've got my Martyr Horde there, and he's stuck with his flanks exposed, and my knights can countercharge. So that works out very well for me. With his beast down in the center, he charges my general in the flank, and he also adds a troop of his Heart Piercers into the other flank. But again, the dice just don't go well for him. The general does have defense 6 with the item, so he's only wounding on 4s with the beast and 6s with the troop. The troop don't do no wounds, but he manages 5 wounds with the beast, and of course that's not enough to do anything to him. He's a 15-17, and on an average roll he's fine. So that goes well for me as well. He's got no charges on my Forsaken Regiment because he is wavered with the Worm Riders, but he does manage to regenerate a couple of wounds, and then he uses his Unicorn there, the white one, to cast Heal and remove all the remaining wounds. So they're now at full strength again, so I really still need to deal with them, but that's also with the fact that I've got a Ensnarer Horde behind me now. So things are not looking great here, but that is the end of his turn, and I'll see what I can do in mine. So I take a few opportunities here. One, I take out his black unicorn that was next to my Abyssal Hunt Knights. The Abyssal Hunt Knights with the Fury countercharge them, and the Martyr Horde gets in the flank, so that's 50 attacks just from them. Probably what I should have done is let the Martyr Horde take him on in the flank. With 50 attacks, I should be plenty to take care of him. I should have countercharged the beast with my Abyssal Hunt. One, because they've got Crushing Strength, so I don't have to worry about losing Thunderous Charge as much as I have Crushing Strength, but also they have Vicious against monsters, so this is the kind of thing they're meant to kill. So this is a poor decision by me. I really should have countercharged the beast and then taken the Martyr Horde into the flank of the Unicorn. But we'll see how things go on here. At least they're still fighting, so I'm happy about that. I reposition them to the right so that they can charge some things if things stay put, more or less. I'll give his beast something to think about. I'm hoping, I don't know if I'm hoping, but I'm thinking maybe he'll charge me just to get rid of that Abyssal Hunt regiment. He only has to do a couple of wounds. He's out of range of my other knights. They're too far down in the forest at this point, but I've got my Martyr Horde ready to charge him if he sticks around. So down in that forest, I do another charge against the Heart Piercer regiment. Now that the Stalker's gone, they don't have Inspiring. I don't roll horribly this time. I roll fairly well, and so this time they're gone. I charge his beast again with my Redeemer, do another couple of wounds. Again, he's disordered and still whittling him down. I do a triple charge against the Worm Riders. I take both of the Forsaken regiments back into them, and I also get a side charge with my general. Again, the dice stay with me. I roll well this turn, and I'm able to put a good number of wounds on them. The Unicorn is a little bit too far down. He's outside of Inspiring range, so I roll a solid nerve check and get rid of them. I turn the Eagles around to face the Horde. I know I'm going to lose something this turn, but it's worth it to get rid of those riders. So I put my other regiment in position to maybe get a flank. I'm also looking at the back of his beast, so depending on what he does with the beast that's at the crossroads in the center there, I'll be able to get a charge off from them. And that's the end of my turn 4. And in his turn 4, a few things happen as expected and a few things not so much. So I don't remember what happened here, but his Ensnarer Horde charges my Eagles, that Forsaken Regiment, and only winds up with 2 wounds. I really don't know how that happens on 25 dice. He's hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. Really, he should get 6 wounds, maybe 7. So just rolling poorly there. He only manages 2 wounds. Doesn't get a high nerve check, so that unit's actually fine, and I'm really surprised by that. My other Forsaken Regiment, he charges with his Unicorn, which surprises me, but I understand it because he's taking away my Thunder's charge. He sees that I've got a lot of options to charge with that unit, and so he's at least disordering them, which ends up being a smart move. He only does a couple of wounds, but then he rolls really high and manages to waver them. So they're wavered, but they're headstrong, so I'll see if I can roll the 4+ and function as normal. He does a double charge against my general, and the dice go well for him here. He's charging into the forest, but again, his whole army has Pathfinder, so his beast gets a front charge on the general. The Naiads get a flank charge. Naiads manage a couple of wounds. I think the beast did another 3 or 4 wounds, and then he rolls really well in the nerve check and gets rid of my general, even with inspiring. So I think he rolled 10 twice on the nerve check, and he was at like 7 or 8 wounds. So that's really unfortunate. That's bad for me to lose my general right there. I was hoping he could stand up to a little more punishment, but he's taken a lot of hits over the last couple turns, so I can't be too unhappy about that. His other Heartpiercer troop down in the middle takes some shots at my Redeemer. Only do a couple of wounds, but then he rolls double 6s and I'm wavered. So not a huge deal. Again, he's got Headstrong, so maybe he can act as normal next turn. At the very least, I can hopefully regen those couple of wounds, and then he still has to deal with me. In the center of the board near the crossroads, his beast does go ahead and charge my Abyssal Hunt Knights and takes them out. He only needs to do a couple more wounds to get another solid nerve check. So this is what I was expecting. I'm hoping that my horde of martyrs can charge him and do some damage there. Be really nice to get rid of that beast. Especially since we have 3 objectives on this side of the board. And right now, I'm in a pretty solid position to be doing good work on those objectives and holding them, but I really need to take out that beast because he's a thorn in my side right now. And so here's the top of turn 5. Disaster strikes for me. I do a triple charge on his beast with both my Forsaken regiments in his flank and my martyrs on his front. My Forsaken regiments are disordered. They both took wounds last turn, but I'm getting double attacks, so I've got 36 attacks at this point, and I'm hitting on 3s, wounding on 5s. So I'm not expecting a ton, but I'm expecting a solid hit here. And then I've got another 25 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 5s from the Martyr Horde. But through that, it's my turn to roll a bit below average here. I don't think it's like necessarily a horrible roll, statistically speaking, but it's definitely below average. So I do 10 wounds, but he's a 15-17 nerve, so I've got a decent chance, and I botch it. I roll a 4. So the beast can function as normal. He's not even wavered, and this is really bad for me. So I'm just stuck here, and now he's got at least his other beast looking at my rear charge, and it just means that I have to sit and wait for him to reposition and get better positioning on me. Especially so late in the game, turn 5. Now it's getting important where we're positioned to hold objectives, because this is pillage. It's not kill and pillage, it's just pillage. So the objectives are the only things that matter. So at any rate, I do a couple other movements here where I put my hunter over next to my redeemer. My redeemer does not pass his headstrong roll, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to put a few more wounds on that beast, disorder him again, or maybe even have a chance to take out one of these heart piercer troops. But that's okay. He regens a couple of wounds and just stays put. My hunter's near him now, and that's my turn 5. And in his turn, I figure I'm going to lose one of my Forsaken regiments, but I wasn't anticipating losing them both. So this is unfortunate for me as well. What he does is he moves his beast in position to cast Lightning Bolt instead of charging him in the rear. It's a very tempting charge, but I think that was a disciplined and calculated move by him to not take that charge, because I would have charged him back with my Martyr Horde, and I also had my Redemption Knights down in the forest that would have been in range to charge him. We were looking at it really closely, and it was a close call, but if he had taken a rear charge in either of my Forsaken regiments, I would have been able to charge him back with that unit. So instead, he lands in the forest. If I come at him at all, I'm going to be hindered, and he just casts Lightning Bolt. And that unit already had a couple of wounds. He does 3 or 4 more, which is rolling above average, and then rolls a solid nerve check. Again, I don't have any Inspiring nearby, which is a huge mistake, and he takes that unit out. Then his Naiad Heart Piercer troops, which are in the center down below, one of them doesn't even have to move. He's in range, has line of sight, and is able to shoot my other Order of Forsaken regiment. And again, does 3 or 4 wounds above average, rolls a solid nerve check, and they're gone. So now I've lost both my flying regiments, and that's really... I really think at this point the game was lost. I think I had a chance before, but I really needed to kill that beast. At this point, I'm trying to think, how can I duke this out for a tie? He's got 2 objectives right now, contending 1, and has potential hold on really the other 2, because he's got a flying unit facing both of them. His unicorn moved over to the right and grabbed that one, which is smart. He doesn't really need the support at this point. He just wants the objective because we're getting towards the end of the game. So at the end of round 5, he's got 2 objectives. I've got maybe 1 with my horde. The other one is contested because my knights and his beast are both there. So he had moved his beast down. This is another huge benefit of Pathfinder. His beast on the left side there was able to move at the double and land on in the forest. Normally that's something you cannot do with flying units. You can't move at the double and land in terrain or on obstacles. But because he's got Pathfinder, he treats difficult terrain like open terrain or just open table. So he's got no problem there. He moves down behind my knights. It's a smart play. I still got some options here, but that way he's contesting that, and it's looking pretty glim for me at this point. So on my turn 6, we're at the potential end of the game, so I throw a couple of Hail Marys. What I'm hoping for here is, if by chance the game ends and I can hold these 2 objectives to his 2 objectives, then at least I can get a draw. I don't know how likely that is, but that's what I'm going for. And it works out a little bit. So on the bottom left in that forest, I shuffle my knights to the left in order to give my hunter line of sight. It's the only way I can get a charge off on the beast that he had down there, and it works. So even though I'm hindered landing in the forest, I still manage 2 or 3 wounds. He already had 10 on him, so I roll a solid nerve check and he's gone. So that's great. Now I'm holding that objective. I take my Martyr Horde and I move them up a little bit so that they're on the center objective. So that's my 2 objectives to his 2. So now he's got to work a little bit in order to contest 1 or get the 3rd. Honestly, because he's going second, all he has to do is land his beast in front of my Martyr Horde. He doesn't even have to charge me, and he's contesting that, and he wins if the game ends. But one of the people watching the game brings up the point that the tournament gives extra credit if you get a massacre, and a massacre is when you get double whatever the points or objectives are. So if he can get 3 objectives to 1 of mine, or 2 and I only have 1, then he will get extra points in the tournament. So at this point now he's just playing to get a massacre, and I'm trying to defend against that. So not a ton of motivation on my side to try real hard here, but I'm after getting kills. I want a little bit of vengeance to save face, take a few more things out if I can. My Redeemer in the center of the board charges his beast there. I was really just hoping for a super roll, and if I can do 4 wounds and roll double 6s on a nerve check and get rid of the beast, it would be a miracle and save some face and possibly help me get a draw. So unfortunately that doesn't happen. So I do 1 or 2 wounds and roll low on the nerve so that he's not wavered or anything. So we'll see what he does in the potential last turn here in his turn. And on his turn 6, we realize that this is just really an exercise in futility, because his beast has enough range to fly across and get you just within 3 inches of that objective. So he's barely on the tip there, but he's got 3 inches away, so he's got 3 objectives to my 2. Even if we go to a turn 7, I don't see what I can do here. Again, it'll just be a matter of him going after a massacre versus just getting a win. So everything else just kind of stays put. He moves the beast across and just kind of repositions the horde. And that's turn 6. And we do roll and end up going to turn 7. So actually, I'm mistaken. That wasn't the end of the round. That was just my turn. In turn 6 here, I just took an extra screenshot. He moves up his Naiad Ensnarer Horde, and that is within range to contest the middle objective that my Martyr Horde is sitting behind. So this was a gamble, but he really has nothing to lose. He's going for the Massacre here. If the game ends here, then he's contesting that center objective, and then he still has 3 other objectives that he's holding, and I've only got 1. So if the game ends here, he gets a Massacre, 3 objectives to my 1. If the game goes on to a turn 7, then my Martyr Horde's going to get a flank in his Ensnarer Horde and stand a good chance of taking them out. I've also got my Redeemer there to add a couple of wounds. So he's got 2 units on the center objective in the forest. If he only had 1 troop, then my Redeemer would have a chance of taking them out. My Horde taking out his Horde. It might be closer, but he just played very well here, and he allowed me to take the roll to see if we go to turn 7, and I rolled a 3, needed a 4+, so did not happen. So he does get the Massacre here. I made some pretty crucial mistakes in this game. I gotta say I had a ton of fun. He's a really great opponent, really cool guy. It's an interesting list, a lot of regeneration and heal. It doesn't look on paper like anything packs a lot of punch. You know, the Worm Riders are alright, the Beasts have 7 attacks with Crushing 2, but you know, nothing that he set down on the table made me totally cringe, but it's just the combination of everything and how he used it. And I just have a lot to learn still with Knights. I still feel like I position them poorly, and I just always get outmaneuvered. Even with the Abyssal Hunt, who have haste, so they've got a speed 9, charge 18, I still manage to just, it takes me a long time to get into combat, and it's usually my opponent's choosing of how that happens. So I don't know if I need more chaff units or I just need to learn how to position them better. Again, back to my earlier comment about these Redemption Knights, if I had placed them on the right side of the board, I don't know how that would have changed things. It would have changed things a lot. I'm just not sure how it would have played out. So there's really no way of knowing. But I think it was a poor choice to put them on the left side. I already had several things on the left side, and he didn't have very much. So to contest or fight over the objective down there wouldn't have taken a lot of effort, and I really could have used those knights elsewhere. So the denied flank I don't think was a great deployment choice this time. I probably should have been a little more spread out. I still need to get Inspiring and keep it within my ranks. This is a tournament though, so I have to use the same list. I just need to position things differently so that I have Inspiring. I don't know if that would have change things a whole lot here, but it's just something you need to do. And apparently I'm still learning that lesson. So at any rate, I'm looking forward to playing him again. I had a lot of fun with this game. It took a while. We were both being very careful with our movements, so the game took a long time, but it was a lot of fun. I have to say that Kings of War, to me, still is just a wonderfully tactical game. I was watching another battle report of somebody else where they said that they don't care for Kings of War much because it doesn't feel like massive armies. It just feels like blocks moving around. But there's a give and a take there. To me, it still feels like massive armies because I see the story of it, and I see, when you see all the miniatures and everything, to me it feels that way. But I like it as blocks because this game totally feels like chess when you're trying to outmaneuver your opponent. And Alessio Cavatore said that, he's the writer of the game, he said that it's a game where the rules have depth to them, but when you're playing, you're not sitting there thinking of rules, you're thinking of strategy, you're thinking of tactics. You're not bogged down in your mind with all the rules of everything, so it gives you the freedom to just think about what you're doing on the board. So I definitely think that's true, and this whole game was just about careful movements and positioning. I didn't do it well, but I'm still learning. But that's totally what this game felt like, and it really came down to some crucial placements and positioning of some of my units. There was some wacky rolling. We both had moments that we rolled poorly. We both had moments that we rolled well. There weren't really any double ones or double sixes to worry about. I did get double sixes against my Redeemer at one point, but I mean, it can happen anywhere, and if it's going to happen there, it's no big deal. So nothing too crazy there. I think it was pivotal for me when I did a triple charge on the beast in the center of the table and didn't even waver him. If that had gone differently, I probably could have won the game. But it's not enough to say that the game hinged on that one roll. Yes, if that one roll had gone differently, I could have won the game, but there were several other rolls that contributed to the way things played out. When I wavered 2 of his units in turn 3, if either of those rolls had gone differently, things would have played out differently. So there's just a lot of things that added up to the result of this game, but I feel like he played very well. He's got an interesting list. Pathfinder across the board is pretty tough to deal with. We fought a lot in these forests, and he had Pathfinder and I didn't. So that was a big advantage to him, and he used it well. And I think I underestimated his list in a lot of ways. So very fun game. I hope to do it again with him soon. I'm not sure if that puts me out of the tournament or if I go to round 3 against one of the other losers of round 2. We'll just have to see how things play out, but if it happens, I will definitely be recording it. Thanks for watching. Please leave any comments or questions, or really I'd love feedback and advice, especially as it goes to tactics, whether it's deployment strategy or how to move things or use things. I still feel like I have a lot to learn there, so I definitely appreciate any feedback you have. Thanks for watching.